What's going on, y'all? Back again with another video. This time we're gonna be talking about Jagaaaaaan. Okay, so what I'm gonna be doing in this video is thoughts. Just give out my thoughts and I guess a little bit of analysis, essentially, on what I think of the manga. Now, as usual, I'm going to be assuming that you've read the manga if you're watching this video. So this is your spoiler warning. If you have not read it, go ahead, go read it. But I'm going to be talking about the manga in great detail, and it's a lot of spoilers. So there you go. That's your warning. So you've been warned. Now that we got the spoiler warning out the way, so basically, if you've already researched this manga and seen what other people said about it, you'll notice that generally it's got like pretty positive reviews. Just that it's psychological, this, that, and the third. About the depth and the philosophy behind it. To me personally, I think a lot of the reviews kind of overhyped it. Like generally, overall, I think it was okay. It's a mixed bag. The manga itself was a mixed bag to me. It had some good, it had some bad. I kind of walked away. It was very forgettable, and it took me a minute to read it, honestly. But moving away from the general consensus of what most people thought about Jagaaaaaan, I want to get into the actual analysis and start talking about, well, the first thing that kind of pops in my mind, and is just the large amount of characters, and how even though they had so many characters, none of them had any real depth. So basically, throughout the show, you just get this random cast of people. I don't want to say random, but you get these characters. Let's say your Jagaans, your Robo-chans, or Yadori. So the best way to describe these guys is basically individuals with this deep desire for something, but they mask that desire so that they can appear normal in the public, and either maybe they fantasize about it, or like a Jagasaki, or or they act out in secret, like Robo-chan, just doing weird stuff or whatever, and they kind of never live the life that they want to live. Now, generally, a lot of desires tend to be violent in a way. Like Jagaaaaaan, like every time he gets pissed off, he just kind of imagines just blowing everybody's brains out that has locked him into this regular schmegular lifestyle. Yeah, but then one day, eventually, the frenzy frog comes in, and it grants these guys the ability to act out on their desires. And a lot of the times, their power manifests themselves as a function of said desire. Whereas Jagaaaaaan, he just wanted to shoot people, right? So he got a gun in his hand, and Robo-chan wanted the affection and attention of females that he just wasn't getting, and his power manifested itself in a way where he could get this affection and attention with or without their consent. And Yadori, who his fantasy was, be, I guess, in a way, somewhat of a center of attention, like just be a main character. I guess he felt like a side character most of his life, and he's just kind of flowing through, not really making any active moves. And he gets a power where he can become anyone he wants to be. He can kind of steal their body. So on his face, these things are actually pretty interesting, right? Conceptually, to say like, hey, you have to suppress desire. You've been trying to fit into society. You're hiding this, tearing it down, and you're going through life just flowing by and letting other people make decisions for you, and it's getting you down. And then in comes Frenzy Frog. Now it's like you're able to act out on all the deepest desires that you ever had, and you can kind of see the world from the other side and really get to reevaluate your own ideas, principles, wants, and needs, right, in a way that you couldn't have before. Basically, you're able to finally move a peg in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I guess find self-actualization, because as you notice, as they got their powers and were able to do what they wanted with it, that it didn't really bring them the peace that they had originally thought that it would bring. If anything, it brought each of these characters a great deal of sadness, actually. Like it brought them more sadness, or a feeling of emptiness and lack of direction. Like Jagasaki, at least before the DDL and the betrayal, he just was just on the fence and could not decide what it is he truly wanted, what was his plan. Robo-chan, he finally got to act out on all his deepest desires, and he didn't have to do the whole people in time thing. He had multiple girlfriends, quote unquote, asterisks by the girlfriends, but they were coming in and doing the thing for him, and it didn't bring him, if anything, it brought him more pain. And he was seeking something a little bit more meaningful, or actually, I don't like, he was seeking something more meaningful, but he went about it in a more destructive way, as in he went for more thrill seeking and just trying to up the ante on who he could get. So basically, he was looking for more difficult targets. Hence why he went for the Triple H girl at the end, and God bless her for what she did to him and finally finishing the kid off. But yeah, so his manifested in a positive, not positive, in a darker way. Actually, even including Jagasaki's manifested in a darker way, because he kind of threw away all the positive things in his own life with Bell-chan and having a positive, life with her, or going off in a self-sacrificial way to save his ex wife or whatever, ex-fiance, and bringing her back to life by getting rid of all the frenzy frogs. He kind of just went into, nope, I'm going for revenge, and I just want to blow shit up, and I'm okay with that, and that's what makes me happy. So yeah, his actually went into a dark path too, just or at least a murderous dark path, whatever. And he was willing to kidnap and do whatever it takes to make that goal happen. Then you have Yadori, who took the body of Airi and became Airi, and now he's this pretty girl, whatever, and he's getting all the attention that he never had, and he's kind of acclimating himself to the body. He's becoming more feminine, whatever. But you see, as he goes through the motions, at first it's great, like with all of them, at first it's great and they're enjoying it, but then eventually it subsides, and it's just kind of like, well, what am I doing? Who do I want? Is this what I want? And they get sadder and sadder, like how as he started sleeping with more and more people and getting the attention and people giving him that attention, he started feeding off it more, and he needed to up the stakes and up the ante, kind of like a Robo-chan, but it didn't matter. It didn't fill it out, and we don't know how it's gonna end for Yadori, but he's kind of currently still on that Robo-chan arc, because I guess he's now pursuing a relationship with Jagasaki as best she can, right, as Airi, and so we'll see how that works out, and whether or not he takes a dark turn in his self-actualization like Jagasaki has, or if he just gets destroyed before he can ever kind of complete his Maslow's hierarchy climb up the ladder. So the more I talk about this and just kind of thinking out loud, I realize that Yadori, Jagasaki, and Robo-chan are, in a way, all kind of like in some way, shape, or like in the areas that they lack or are unable to assert in themselves to achieve their desires in a more positive, constructive, healthy way, that each of their individual weaknesses, for lack of a better word, is kind of the weaknesses of any young man, right, that you could find in randomly out in society. Basically, the lack of attention from girls, that's Robo, right? And he really desires that attention. Or with Jagasaki, the inability to assert himself, to just not be pushed around and pushed over, right? The inability to just say, no, I don't want to do this, and please get the hell out of my face, right? Just don't bully, don't mess with me. That's Jagasaki. And then Yadori is just the want and the need to be the center of attention, the just fantasizing about being some type of hero, right? The hero's journey, right? Like he wants to be like the story to be told about him, which is an interesting realization for me, because also once they all got their powers, they ended up worse off than before they had their powers after some time. So that's kind of so like overall the concept that he laid out, the writer laid out for the story for these characters was interesting, right? Like, and I use these guys because their motivations were more explicitly told, and we kind of followed them a little longer because they each had their own arcs. and obviously Jagasaki being the main character. But despite it, like having such good intrigue or whatever, and such a good skeletal structure, the muscle to me just was never added on, because it just felt like the character, as I read the manga, the characters just kind of felt empty to me, and so I couldn't really feel for them, or I just didn't care about them. They just felt like a little too unidimensional, and they kind of threw in some philosophy quotes here and there, especially with Jagasaki on the back end of the story after the Dead Land, and he's on the revenge path, where he's waxing poetic out loud, thinking about the meaning of their desires and all those things. And yeah, like, it's cool, but it's just like the characters just came off as lame, because they just didn't have any complexity to them. They were just really, really boring. Like Jagasaki was such a perfect example of this, because to me, like, his motivations just seemed off and just not like interesting at all. It's like he just, and I guess that was the point, but he just seemed too wayward, and in a way, like, that was the point. It's like he doesn't know his true desire, and he's just kind of or everybody else's desire is boring. So I guess that's the point, but still, like, just the motivation to save his ex-fiance that he killed, to me, just seemed stupid, because it was like, look, one, he didn't even like her. Two, it's like, why would he want her back? Because if he brings her back, then it's almost like going back to that life. And you can kind of just chalk up these lame motivations to literally all the rest of the characters, where it's just like they're boring, motivations aren't really adding up, and then they go wayward, and it's just like meh. Now, I will say there were two characters who actually had interesting backstories that, like, I mean, at least that we've been given so far, and I'll say that's Mikazuchi and Yadori. But so starting with in Mikazuchi's case, his backstory was interesting, with his family, his life as a cop, and then and how he became fractured during a fight with his son, and how his son became a fractured human. Like, his was actually really interesting. And then I would say that Yadori is probably the most interesting character. And then seeing him live life as Airi was probably the best part of the show to me personally. It was the most interesting. So basically, the manga Jagaaaaaan tries to cover three main genres throughout their story, and that would be psychological, battle shonen, and slice of life. To me personally, trying to cover all three of these large genres made the show mediocre, right? It became a jack of all trades instead of a master of one thing. But what it did do one of the sections really well for at least one of the story arcs, and that is slice of life, and where Yadori turns into Airi and lives his life as a female. This section of the story was just super entertaining to me, because one, I'd never seen it before. I'd never seen an anime do this, an anime or manga do this. And then two, it was just funny. Like, just when they're in the house and the guys would be confessing to Airi, oh my God, I love you. And then it was just this goofy ass scene. And so, like, that was definitely entertaining and funny. But what really made it great was just watching Yadori, or Airi. I'm just gonna keep calling Airi. I'm gonna keep saying Airi. So basically, watching Airi mentally change into a more feminine mindset, right? Like, whereas slowly but surely he just started acting more and more girly, like unbeknownst to himself. Like, it was even surprising and shocking him. Also, it was cool to see the different phases that a woman goes through in terms of how she deals with relationships at different phases of their life. But what the manga did that was really cool is that they condensed all these phases. What I would want to say, like how I imagine, let's say, for the ages for a woman between 15 to 30, and took the phases of that dating approach and their strategies and what they're looking for, and condensed it into the small time frame that we see in the manga. So we see Airi go through fluctuating emotions, and then just liking anyone who shows any level of attention. You know, this is be like the high school phase, like, oh my god, I like you, and then it's like, oh, Ari's heart would flutter, and then he like he would just give it up to whoever, you know, would get that rise out of him. And then that how he got addicted to that dopamine kick of people giving him attention, to where he would do things to just get that attention without, you know, without any real rhyme or reason, right? He was really just seeking out the attention, which was, you know, was a cool perspective. And to me personally, I think this attention seeking behavior was amplified by the fact that in Ari's past life, she was invisible. Nobody cared. Nobody tried to get this person's attention, which is, I guess, generally the life of a lot of young men, right? So now, as this, you know, quote unquote pretty girl, he's getting all the attention, yada yada yada, and he can't get enough of it. It's just too much of a dopamine kick. And then also with the fluctuating emotions and with the mind of a, I guess, you know, quote unquote girl or whatever, that it amplifies all this, and this, it's just like this perfect whirlwind of emotions leading to some seriously unhealthy attention seeking behavior. And then she hooks up with her first boyfriend, and it's like puppy dog love. And then when he doesn't give her the attention that she feels she needs, then she goes and cheats and gives other guys attention. And then watching the love rivalries, where she would see another girl like a guy, and then all of a sudden she wants to jump on the same guy. Or if she felt like some other girls looking at her guy, she'd get way more flirty and give the guy more attention and just do whatever it takes, just in the way I guess you would stereotypically think a girl would do it. And then through all of this, you know, just, you know, messing with other guys, cheating on her boyfriend, doing this, doing that, being jealous of other girls, like at the end of it all, you know, now she's kind of feeling guilty, ashamed, empty, and, you know, and just feeling used. And so then eventually she tries to take control of all this, and, you know, and starts trying to get other guys and use them, right? As and the way that she thinks, where she controls the narrative, which was, this scene was exemplified at the beginning of, like, after the Deaderland arc, and she's hooking up with that one guy or whatever, some business guy off of some speed dating, and she's like, this is just gonna be a fling, and she's gonna be in control of the situation. But then and she's talking about how she's using the person, but then at the end she thinks about it, and then she's like, well, technically he's using me and we're just using each other. Is this all there is to it? And she walks out of that, and she's just kind of, you know, feeling hollowed out with all these meaningless relationships. And so now she's looking for a meaningful relationship. It's like now she's hitting her 30s and ready to settle down and get married. You know, she's gone through the whole phase, and this phase, the puppy dog love phase, and she sees Jagasaki, and she's like, oh, this is the person I want to be with, yada yada, like, I want to see this. He's famous, has status, and that's kind of like what she wants to jump on, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to do it, to get there. And we don't really know how this is going to turn out yet, since it hasn't, like, she hasn't even confessed to him, and it hasn't manifested. Their relationship hasn't manifested itself, so we don't know what direction it's going to go. But it'll be interesting to see whether she finds meaning in that, or like whichever way, or maybe like Robo-chan, she gets killed before she can ever really self-actualize. Overall, her arc is the most unique, interesting, and probably out of all the stories going on in the show, the one that I'm probably currently most invested in. Now, moving on from Ari, I think the next thing to talk about is the female characters in the show. And quite frankly, there's just not much to talk about, because they were totally useless. I mean, literally, like, there's no female character in this show that I can think of that's worth even mentioning, outside of just how bad and useless they were. This is generally an issue that you can find in a lot of shonen battle animes, but Jagaaaaaan just took it to a whole new level. So basically, with the female characters, you don't really get any deep thoughts out of them. Their motivations they don't stretch past the man that they're with, right? Like, essentially, like, their sole purpose is just to uplift their partner and to be motivation for their partner and just to look pretty. Essentially, like, they're just kind of like sex objects, basically, which, you know, it's whatever, but I mean, like, literally every female character is like this. And I think the number one example of this issue would have to be Belle-chan. I mean, this is public enemy number one for me, honestly. Like, whenever she showed up, it was just like, oh my god, she's so boring. All she ever does is think about Jagasaki. All she ever does is figure out how to make Jagasaki happy. And then, you know, she's the quintessential good girl, nice, sugar, just all sugar, no spice. And, you know, she comes with the usual perfect girlfriend starter pack, triple D titties, the cute moe face or whatever. Well, I don't know if it's moe, but just the cute button face, and just usual. And, you know, just and throwing a couple underwear scenes, and, you know, that's literally every other female in the show, right? Like, just copy and paste her, tone it down a little bit, and that's every female character in the show. But at the end of the day, the only thing that you can't tone down or up is their own ambitions, passions, and ideas, because they got zero. So you can't modulate zero. But I have to be fair, because there's one good female character in the show. As a matter of fact, not just good. Actually, I think this was a great character. Like, I have to be fully honest. The character's interesting, has some backstory, and it's got some layers to them. The best part about this character is that they have motivations of their own, independent of any guy that they're with. But the female character that is actually good in this show is Airi. Oh, but guess what? It's a gender bender. So the only good female character they made was at some point a man. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just like, why even write female characters if you're not going to at least take the effort to give them a meaningful identity? So really, that's my overall opinion on that. You know, I just feel like if a character is going to take up screen time, then you should take the time to flesh that character out independent of other characters. Now, generally speaking, with most of the female characters, they really didn't take up that much screen time, and they were just really, really like marginal characters. But Belle-chan really stuck out. Like, she got a lot of screen time, and I just felt like they dropped the ball on her. They should have written her much better than they actually did. So yeah. So then the next thing that comes to mind is the Deaderland arc. This arc was terrible. Like, I mean, it was horrible. Like I said before, like, I mean, the Airi parts were interesting, but outside of Airi's slice of life portion of it, like, it was bad. Just from the dates between Belle-chan and Jagasaki, boring, to the random goons that Jagasaki had to fight, you know, the random faction humans, that was boring. Like, that tournament, oh my god, that was so boring. Then you had Jagasaki's his melodramatic existential crisis. That was even more boring, because it was totally just uninteresting, man. I mean, don't even get me started on Tengu's riddles. Like, I really just skimmed through those parts. I mean, the only interesting parts about his riddles is the fact that, like, he would put Jagasaki in positions that would make him question his morals, which is something that the manga did decently. But I feel like that's almost like really easy to do, right? Like, because usually in mangas and just, you know, any type of story in general, like, the things are kind of like black and white. So I'll give him credit. I'm not gonna say it's easy to do. I will give him credit, but yeah, that was about it. Like, just having his morals be pushed and just watching him instantaneously just choose, like, to save Belle-chan's life instead of the lives of 5 people. Like, it just didn't matter. When push came to shove, like, Jagasaki found out who he really was. Like, generally he tried to portray himself as like a caring individual that cares about the good of the world and others around him, and that he wasn't just caught up in the BS like most other people. But I think during his encounters with Tengu, especially that last one, when he just said, bump it, like, I'm going to sell Belle-chan no matter what, everyone else can go to hell. And then when she looked at him and said, yo, what you're becoming, I can't rock with, you know, and she was like, look, just don't make the decision. And he's like, shit, what do I do? And then he's like, all right, bump it. I'm going to grab Tengu and we're just going to self-destruct and I'm going to just get rid of him. And it's that simple, right? And so basically he finally gave into his desire, like his deepest desire. Like, well, he gave into the idea that he was selfish, and then his deepest desire is the fact that he just wanted to blow shit up, really. And that's when he finally realized it. Like, he just said, you know what? I just want to get rid of people I think are scumbags. I don't care the reason or whatever, any means necessary. That is my goal. And he finally gave into it, and he finally, like, truly understood himself, and he reached a level that he hadn't before. After trying to blow himself up with Tengu, probably led to probably one of the best scenes in the Deaderland arc. is when Mikazuchi betrayed Jagasaki. That scene was pretty crazy. I'm not gonna lie, like it definitely caught me by surprise, and just the build up to that moment was pretty tense because it was like the big boss guy Nomen like had this ability to actually bring people back to life, which was really shocking, you know, it was because especially when it came to Jagaaaaaan, and then he's fighting, Jagaaan's ready to throw down, he's ready to do whatever it takes, and then Tengu hits him with a riddle like, hey man, you can have everything that you want if you join us. And then it was kind of like, damn, Jagasaki got hit with like a, oh snap, so I gotta join you when I've been trying to mess you guys up and, you know, destroy you guys, right? And he's basically like, look, you can keep Bell-chan, and we can bring your ex girl back to life, and you can live on happily and get everything you want, which was kind of dope because then Jagaaaaaan hesitated, which lets you know he wanted none of that. And then he went through what he really wanted was to just destroy scumbags, and which is basically what he ended up choosing. But when they brought that to Mikazuchi, like he said, look, we can bring your son back, right? And he's like, oh. And then he looked like, what? And he made that decision. They didn't really show him make the decision. They cut it to the scene. They cut away from Nomen and Mikazuchi when Nomen was talking to him like, hey, look, I can bring your son back. I just got to... however, I don't know. I don't remember if he explained it or they just kind of said it and it was understood and kind of accepted. And then they cut away from him. And then Jagasaki did his thing and the whole thing kind of blew up. And then Mikazuchi just shows up behind him. He's like, look, I did what was best for me. You know, it's nothing personal. Don't take it personal. Because Jagaaaaaan was like, yo, how could you? And he's like, I made the choice. It is what it is. I'm looking out for numero uno. I've been on a mission, and this guy managed to make my mission complete. So basically, for all the bad that Deadland arc had in it, you know, with the boring, monotonous BS, whatever, it climaxed well. And the Airi slice of life portion was pretty solid. So, you know, overall I didn't like it, but it had some good. Now we fast forward to what I like to call the Deadland revenge arc. So these are the events after the Deadland arc, after he got betrayed, and then Jagasaki breaks off of Bell-chan and just kind of goes off on his own to do his own thing. For me, this arc is where the manga finally consolidates and it makes a good comeback from the dryness of the last arc, the Deadland arc, and it finally has a clear and concise direction. Because originally, like, the manga it really felt aimless, right? Especially everything before the Deadland arc. Although everything before the Deadland arc was interesting, but it just felt like aimless. I didn't really know where it was going or why everything was happening. And then the Deadland arc, I guess it finally brought like a more continuity in terms of a consistent villain and a overarching goal for the main character, which was to get revenge for Mikazuchi betraying him and stopping DDL from infiltrating the government of Japan. And then also, as I stated before, Jagasaki's goals before were just really lame. You know, it was bring his ex back or be with Bell-chan, and it just didn't lend itself to the proper conflict that could carry the story. And then not like now with him wanting to get revenge on Mikazuchi for betraying him, it finally created direction and a meaningful goal that also had larger implications on the world around him in terms of now that Mikazuchi is aligned with DDL, this and DDL's overarching goal is to infiltrate the government in Japan and kind of get fractured humans more all over the world and more acceptable. So now he is in direct contrast and not just some side player. He is in direct opposition to something, and now there's a conflict to look forward to and to watch it play out. Although I will say even this motivation was a bit unimpressive, right? A bit weak, because to me, he doesn't really have like any real reason to be mad at him. I mean, Mikazuchi is a grown man, and he clearly stated to Jagasaki what his intentions were. Like he understood, like he wanted to bring his kid back. So to me, if the ultimate goal is to bring a kid, and the guy says, "Hey, look, I can bring your kid back," like why would you say no? Like why would Jagasaki expect this guy to say no? So I don't really understand that. And then on top of that, I feel like the writing didn't do their relationship justice, right? This is kind of like the failure of the Hunter x Hunter anime, not so the manga, but the anime, where Gon got really mad about Kite dying, but a lot of people in the 2012 anime, they didn't really show the backstory to between Kite and Gon. So some people really felt like he went overboard and didn't understand why he would be so angry. So they didn't understand that was a father figure to him. Whereas I feel like in this one, it's kind of the same thing, even though, like, yes, you see that Mikazuchi guided and helped Jagasaki become a better fractured human warrior or whatever, and just a better person in general, right? And, you know, you there was a bit of a bond, but it wasn't like that long, you know? Like, it didn't seem like it should, the betrayal, like, his reaction to the betrayal just, it seems off, you know? Just the combination of the time that they spent, it wasn't that long. It wasn't as if like they had a crazy amount of awesome rapport. Like you didn't really see them like have those crazy close moments. Yeah, there was a couple speeches here and there, but it just didn't match, right? Just overall, the reaction did not match the action to me. It just felt unbalanced. Now, what would have made sense is if Jagasaki had a lot of animosity towards Nomen for even tempting them with bringing their loved ones back, and then turning Mikazuchi, you know, from the path that he had saw Mikazuchi being on, like the righteous path that he felt that Mikazuchi should have been on, or whatever. To me, Jagasaki should have had way more animosity towards Nomen and been really focused on destroying Nomen rather than Mikazuchi, and then possibly just having a conversation with Mikazuchi to understand where it was that he's coming from. Because if he loved him that much, you know, like you would think that they would have a serious conversation, even though he did try to have that conversation at the end when they're fighting in the last chapter. He was trying to have that conversation, but he was already like hell-bent on just destroying him. And this also kind of leans into another issue that I kind of had, in that it was kind of corny to me, like just how heavily the writing forced Jagasaki into this dark anti-hero. You know, like he kind of became this, you know, badass, you know, no fucks giving kind of guy, and he just kind of seemed out of character, and it just seemed a little cheesy, you know, to me. And then you know, you see the flash of light sometimes when he's having a dinner with his Yukimaru. But outside of those two issues of Jagasaki, you know, his unwarranted anger towards Mikazuchi, well, I shouldn't say unwarranted anger, but I should say his overreaction towards Mikazuchi's betrayal, and then just how much they lean into the anti-hero, you know, for Jagasaki. This was actually an overall pretty good arc, to me, at least. I think the ragtag group was nice, you know, between Jagasaki, Yukimaru, Airi, and Chiharu, you know, they all kind of had their own one-to-one relationship with each other. Like this time, everything didn't just revolve around Jagasaki, so it was kind of fun seeing them all hang out. And then the fight scenes were pretty sweet, you know, they really stepped it up in this arc to me. And then what was even nicer was just the power. Like the way that the abilities of each fighter. I mean, they had cool abilities throughout the show overall, but in this time it kind of just really felt like an X-Men, you know, or if I had to think of another enemy, like a Darker Than Black. Like everybody kind of had these cool powers, and they weren't just random thugs anymore. They were really kind of intricate in how they were using their powers, so that was really cool to see. And then also the power system of Jagaaaaaan, it's nice in terms of it's not like your typical shonen, you know, just power of friendship or just, you know, train hard, get stronger. It was more like you became stronger the more you understood yourself, right? The deeper you understood your desires, the stronger you became. And you could just give into your desires and get a short burst of strength, but that would cause you to fracture completely and you would lose your mind. So yeah, so definitely, so those are definitely positives. So yeah, that's basically all my thoughts on Jagaaaaaan. And if I had to give the manga rating overall, I'd probably say like a 6 out of 10. It was fine, you know. I wouldn't say it was good. It wasn't bad. It had really nice moments. It started out intriguing, you know. It started really interesting. It got a bit boring. It was a bit aimless. Got some direction, and on the back end so far it's been much stronger. So yeah, like I mean, it might be able to save itself some more with the future chapters. I finished at 130 chapter 134, so we'll see where it goes from here. But yeah, so it was solid. It was solid. Not great, not bad, just solid. So yeah, that's all I have to say on it, and I'll see y'all later.